hey everybody, it's time to build something a little bit more interesting on our quarantine trail at home. Longtime subscribers will remember that we built a bit of trail through some woods next to our house. But it doesn't really have much in the way of features, and we only have a tiny section of woods to work with. I've always planned to expand the trail out into our yard, and after some scouting, this seems like a decent place to build a drop. The first step, of course, is sketching it out. I'm not an engineer or a carpenter, so I wanted to build something that was dead simple. And before I go any further, I need to stress that I am not a pro and this is not a tutorial. I'm going to lay out what we did, but that doesn't mean any of this is a good idea. Anyway, here's the plan I came up with in 3D, just so you don't have to try to decipher my terrible drawing. 4x4 legs with a 2x4 underground bar, bolted to a frame made with 2 long 2x6s and 2x4 support pieces. On top of that, regular decking planks cut to roughly 3-foot lengths, so you end up with a 12-foot ramp that's 3 feet wide and about 2.5 feet off the ground. The rest of the legs are underground. I also planned to add some extra 2x4 braces if it felt like the drop needed more stability. And here's the shopping list, not including tools. Keep in mind, this is all ground contact lumber, but even so, without some additional treatment, especially for the underground legs, it probably won't last forever. You'll also need more 2x4s depending on how many additional braces you want. All told, it cost me around $250 for the lumber and other materials at Home Depot. We don't have a pickup truck, but I was able to fit the 8-foot beams inside the RAV4 and strap the rest of it down to the roof rack. Once we got it all safely home and unpacked, the first step was to build the basic deck frame. We cut the 2x4s into 32-inch lengths, assembled the deck frame with 4-inch screws, and then started putting in the supports. It's a lot of drilling holes and driving in screws, but you can see what we're doing here. This is not complicated stuff. Once the deck frame was built, we brought it out to where we're actually planning to place the drop. Okay, let's put it down right there. I wanted to do this because I'd really only eyeballed the height, and I wanted to see what the real drop would look like in the space before cutting those expensive 4x4 beams. Our land is really flat, so to make it anything above a 2-foot drop, the deck would have to be angled slightly upward. But that seemed okay to me, as long as it wasn't so steep that you'd lose a ton of speed coming into it. Then it was time for the real nightmare to begin. I wanted to have an equal length of leg post below and above the ground, which for a 2.5-foot drop meant digging 2.5 feet down. I also wanted an underground crossbar for additional stability, which meant I couldn't just dig 2 post holes. The digging was really slow going, because after about a foot of rooty loam, our ground turns to hard clay. You really can't dig into it, you have to chip away at it and then scoop out the chips, slowly. So that was how I ended day 1, digging. Day 2, that's where we left off, and it's time to do some more digging before we get to the next step. So yeah, back to the shovel. Yeah, you can see how fun this part of the project was. Once it got to around 2 feet deep, I decided to take a break and cut the legs to 5 feet. My grandfather gave me this saw, and in retrospect, I probably should have bought some new blades. But it was free, it works, and we got through the legs eventually. Then it was back to digging. But our neighbors came over and let us borrow a post hole digger and this pick shovel, which both made breaking up the clay a bit faster. After a while, we brought the legs out and attached them to the frame while it was upside down, first using 4-inch screws and then using the 2 large lag bolts. I'm not sure how well my drill could handle this level of torque, and I don't have the right attachment anyway, so I just put these in the old-fashioned way. Now we had the frame with the 2 legs attached, and we had what seemed like a reasonably deep hole, so it was time for a test fitting. Not too bad, but I wanted to make it a little bit less inclined, so we went back to chipping away at the clay. Finally, it was time to add the underground leg brace to the legs, again using 4-inch construction screws, and drop the legs into the hole. It felt a little painful filling back in all the dirt and clay we'd just dug out, but we were making progress. On a whim, I decided to add another 2x4 crossbeam behind the legs for additional support, and then it was time to test it.
This feels pretty solid.
At this point, the drop is structurally done, but of course we need to cut and install the deck boards to make it rideable. That entails a lot of cutting and a whole lot of drilling. I was constantly switching back and forth between the drill bit and the screwdriver and thinking how much faster this would have been if I had clamps to hold the planks down. But Home Depot's 20 minutes away, and I wasn't sure that clamps would save enough time to make the trip worth it. In retrospect, I probably should have just gone and bought some clamps. About halfway through the drilling, we took a break and went to refuel at Fat Boy, an old-style drive-in restaurant. I've been coming here for decades, but the eat-in-your-car thing is especially appealing given the pandemic. It's classic, greasy American goodness with a bit of Maine thrown in. Pretty much what you'd expect from a restaurant called Fat Boy. The food gave me the kick I needed to finish up the drilling, and by the end of day 2, everything was drilled into place. There was a little more shoveling to be done to smooth out the run-in, but it was very close to ready. Before riding it, I wanted to mow the run-in and run-out down as low as possible just to help keep speed up. But of course... did that belt come off again? Here we can see the problem. When I put it back on, I left this... I didn't notice that this had come out, so that was actually on the outside over there. So now that it's back on the inside of these guides on both sides, hopefully it'll actually run. 3rd time's the charm. With that problem solved, I did some quick path mowing, and then it was totally ready. Time for the moment of truth.
I hear 'em chatting the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear 'em chat with the boys, man so tough, but mans keep walking.
And look, I know these drops aren't perfect. That's kind of the point, right? Now that I have a higher drop with a long run-in, I can easily practice doing these at different speeds and in different conditions. Like the wind gusts that almost crashed me on this one.
Oh, Jesus, the wind. Oh my God. Whew. That was the wrong time for a gust.
I doubt the drop itself is built perfectly either, but it feels rock solid. For $250 in one weekend, it definitely feels like a worthwhile investment into my progression. And a fun addition to our homegrown trail. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to stick around because I've got new ones coming every week.
I got a few tricks up in the sleeve. One wrong move, I'ma let out the big shoes, check out the crease.